Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bobo Potster. Welcome. You saw in the opening screen that we had about 3 or 4 pictures of me in my Duke shirt. I won't mention that Duke is playing tonight at 7 o'clock against Vermont in the NCAA tournament, and that I'm not at all nervous, but we'll be fine. Win, lose, or draw. Today's show is going to be fun. Those of you who are involved in your local governments understand that no matter what form of government you have, whether you have a mayoral situation or a select person situation or other form of government, democracy cannot work unless there are many, many volunteers who give up their time and energy to try to make your community a better community and make my community a better community. And today we have as one of my guests, or my guest today, is Maureen Kozlark, who is on the Richfield Board of Select Persons. We used to call it Select Men, but now appropriately it's called the Select Person. And she and I served on the Board of Education together. We'll get into that in a few moments. But she gives a lot of time and effort to help make the town of Richfield a better place to live in. So today I'm welcoming Maureen Kozlark to the show to talk about her role in the community. Welcome, Maureen Kozlark. How are you?
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. And I love your introduction with all of your Duke paraphernalia.
That's correct. Although Yale is also playing today, my undergraduate school, and people have said, where are the Yale pictures? But I should be given trouble for that. Maureen, give us a little background. First of all, what is your elected position right now, and how many years have you been on that board?
I'm currently serving on the Board of Select Person, and I have been on the Board of Select People here in Ridgefield for 13 years. I was appointed in 2010 and then ran for election and was elected in 2011. So it's been about 13 years now.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long. And before you were on the Board of Select Person, if I say Select Men, excuse me, because we've always said it, I was actually on Charter Revision Committee several years ago. We converted from 2-year term to 4-year term for Select Persons and Select Men. And so I'm well familiar with the process, and I'm glad you changed the name of the board. But before that, you served on the Board of Education. How many years were you on the Board of Ed?
I did. I ran and won my seat on the Board of Education in 1997 and concluded my tenure there in 2008. So it was about 10 years on the Board of Education and 13 years now on the Board of Selectmen. So 23 years so far of elected public service here in Ridgefield. For
which you are richly compensated in terms of gratitude, but no money. And it's funny because people think that as a Board of Ed member or as a Board of Select Person member, you're paid. The first selectman gets paid, but you do not, and we did not on the Board of Ed. I remember when you ran for the Board of Ed in 1997, I had just got on the Board of Ed that August. And I was just like you, I was appointed to fill a slot, and then I had to run for election. Nobody told me that 3 months after getting on the board, I have to run for election. But I remember there were a lot of controversies in Richfield at that point in time about the Board of Education, about the school crowding issues and whatever. And you were part of what we called the bundle, I guess it was, so to speak, where we had candidates from different political parties. I'm a Democrat, you were a Republican at that point in time, but there was a group of people who were pro-education, shall we say. And we all sort of ran together, and you and I served. I was on in 2003 after having 6 years. I left the Board of Ed after 15 years. I was on 9 years in my prior town, and you stayed on. Thank you for the hard work that you've done. Tell me, first of all, Maureen, why did you get involved initially in public service?
Well, my dad kind of laid the groundwork for me when I was a young girl because he was a member of the Board of Education in the town that I grew up in. And I could see how important local government is and how you can effectuate change by becoming involved and learning what's going on and attending meetings and talking to public servants. It's an important role. And I just felt that, you know, with my 2 young children getting ready to enter Ridgefield Public Schools, I wanted to be to have my voice heard in the delivery of their education, and I did.
Where were you born and raised? Where were you born and raised?
Orange County, New York. It's a small little town over in New York State. And then when I got married, my husband's an attorney, and he was doing a closing in Ridgefield. He came home. We were living in Westchester somewhere, and he said, Maureen, I found the town that we're going to want to live in. He had driven down Main Street and fallen in love, like many other people do when they come to Ridgefield, because of the quintessential Main Street and the beautiful architectural buildings and then the wonderful school system. it was magical. So we came to Ridgefield.
It's interesting. When I was on the Board of Education, I enjoyed every minute of it. And the hours it took were unbelievably great. In fact, I think I used to say I had two full-time jobs. I'm an attorney as well, and then being on the Board of Education. And I had a theory, which was if a meeting went past 10:30 at night, we should end it because people lose their tempers. Not a lot, but we get tired or whatever. But I think it was a great experience. And when you and I were on the board, we built the Scottsridge Middle School, and we built an extension to the high school. And those issues were controversial, but I think, you did a very good job. We didn't always agree, as I said, but we did a good job. And in fact, the difference between what I see now and then, I'm going to ask you about your experience now, is in those days, we could disagree at a board meeting and the vote might be 6-3 on this or 5-4 on that. We have a 9-person board, but we would always leave the meetings together. And we were always all, maybe not the best of friends, but we always were friendly. And nowadays, I see too much of politics being where even on local boards, there isn't that camaraderie. There isn't that perspective that reasonable people can disagree reasonably. Do you find it a little different now than it was 20 years ago?
Well, I'm on a much smaller board now. You have to remember, there's only 5 of us on the select persons board. And so there's definitely a camaraderie, and there's definitely respect and a thoughtful exchange at every meeting. I feel that people bring their experience and their intelligence and their thoughtfulness to all the meetings, and we learn from each other. We can disagree, we can have different votes, but yes, I as far as the experience I've had for all 13 years that I've been on the Board of Select people, it's been very positive. Our first selectman, Rudy Marconi, does a wonderful job keeping us on track, guiding us through the agenda items that we have. Like, as you said, we have some late night meetings. We start early, but it's important work. And I do feel there's always a camaraderie, but we don't socialize with each other necessarily. It's not because we don't like each other. It's just that we're from different, areas of town and that type of thing.
I happened to watch in preparation for today's show, and I don't think I've been to more than a couple of Board of Selectmen meetings in the last many years. I actually went when they named one of the roads Leegee Way versus Leegee Street. I remember that discussion.
Oh yeah,
I think it was the first meeting you may have been on as a Board of Selectmen member. But in any event, I watched a little bit of most recent meeting, March 20th, and I was very impressed that there was very good discussion of very important topics. In fact, we're going to get into right now some of those topics to talk about what's going on in Ridgefield and understanding what's happening. I think one issue I'd like to raise to you, and it was not an agenda item on that meeting, but is the traffic in downtown Ridgefield. And Ridgefield downtown is actually a state highway. People think it's just a local road. And there's been a lot of work done. If you've been on the Board of Selectmen for 13 years and you've been part of the process, talk a little bit about what's going on and what has been going on to try to make the downtown traffic patterns a little more lively so that you're not getting stuck for a long time.
Well, as you know, we had that major renovation the state did with the traffic patterns on Main Street, and it did take a while for it to come to fruition. But I think ultimately it has streamlined a lot of the traffic in downtown Ridgefield because they've created turning lanes, which I think has made a big difference at Bailey Avenue. If you're heading south, there's the left-hand turning lane now. If you're heading north, there's the left-hand turning lane to go to make the left onto Katuna. I think that the fact that they straightened out the intersection at the CVS and the library has made a big difference. Their synchronization of the lights, it's happened, but there's still a lag behind on the Route 35 corridor with the lights out by Stop and Shop. But by and large, that whole corridor, I feel, on Main Street traffic has started to ease up because you don't have people stopping traffic if they're making a left-hand turn and the cars behind them can't get around them.
You and I are both avid walkers. I walk 4.5 miles a day. Well, at least I did until I got an inflamed Achilles, so I'm doing a little less walking now. But I would walk downtown most days, and you can tell the traffic is better.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, no matter what you do, between 5 o'clock, let's say, and 5 and say 7, because of traffic coming down that area, there's just only so many things you can do. But I think that the Board of Selectmen deserves some credit, or much credit, for working hard to get that accomplished.
And the other thing, Bob, just quickly on that, is that we also were very judicious about making sure that the trees stayed planted, because the beautiful tree-lined Main Street was a characteristic that we didn't want to lose. We wanted to maintain parking spots so that people still could come down and enjoy parking in downtown Ridgefield. I know that people feel we don't have enough parking, but we did maintain the spots. I think we lost one of them or something like that. There was a lot of moving pieces with that construction that I felt that was the attention to detail was very significant. And I personally am happy with the way it turned out.
I know from my experience with you on the Board of Education that you are meticulous in what you try to do. And I know Rudy's done a phenomenal job as first selectman. And it just takes a lot of effort. And that's the kind of thing where people want the road to be moving more quickly, and people complain, but they don't realize how many hours it takes and how much cooperation between the board of Ridgefield and the state to get things done. Things just don't happen overnight. I'm going to change now to another topic that was on your March 20th meeting, and it involves pickleball, which is a sport that has developed of late. And I didn't hear the whole discussion, but why is that on the agenda? What's going on in pickleball?
Well, the bottom line is that we need more pickleball courts in town. It's a exploding sport. It's become very popular. There's a very large number of citizens who enjoy playing pickleball. So the impetus was that the Parks and Rec Department is looking for a spot to create 6 more pickleball courts. And pickleball, because of the nature of the paddle and the ball, does have a sound related to it that can be a little unnerving, and it's and can be continuous depending on the level of play and how many times it gets batted across the net. So the board of the Parks and Rec Department, Board of Selectmen, want to be mindful of where those pickleball courts are placed, so that it's constructed in a expeditious way, but so that the pickleball players can use it, but also is not infringing upon the lifestyle and quiet time of the neighbors. So the reason it was on our agenda on Wednesday night was because one of our local businessmen, Steve Zemo, who happens to own some of the buildings adjacent to where the proposal was to put the courts, wanted to come and talk to us about concerns he had about noise, possible, something that might be too loud for the residents, and also some questions he had about the tree cutting and the environmental impact that perhaps locating those pickleball courts where they were proposed would entail, and that he was hoping that we could have Parks and Rec could maybe take a second look at positioning of where those courts would be placed.
Maureen, the beauty of our democracy is that people have an opportunity to discuss different points of view. And there's not a topic I don't think there is, that you could bring up at the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, whatever, in which there may not be a different perspective. And that's part of what is involved in having good leadership. I remember when I was on the Board of Ed, at that point in time, I'm not sure how it is now, but at Tiger Hollow, which is our football field in the high school, there was very, very poor, if any, cellular connection in those days. And we wanted to build, I think you may have been on the Board of Ed at that point in time, we were going to earn some money and also build antennas, or whatever they were going to call it, so that we can have better reception, because we thought, for example, I know your kids played sports and my son played football. My daughter was a ballerina. And there could be an injury or something, and you may want to be able to call the fire department or whatever, but people were complaining that, wait a minute, it's going to hurt my view of this or whatever. And that's part of having good leadership, that you discuss these issues, you come to an issue that is the best for the community. And I want to talk to you about the fact that it leads into my next question, which is the difference when you're on a board between saying this is what Bobo Potsner wants or what Maureen Kozlark wants versus your fiduciary obligation as a board member in any town. as to doing what's best for the community, not best for yourself. Do you have any comment about that?
Absolutely, 100% agree with you, which is not unusual for you and I, Bob. You have to wear your universal hat, and you have to hear what different members of the community are saying and their viewpoints, what their thoughts are, what their investigations they've done, and then come to a group decision that will be beneficial for the majority of people, that will and benefit the town. And it can't be an individual decision, and you have to put your, obviously you have your viewpoints that you during a meeting, and this about me. I will advocate for positions that I feel are important and will be beneficial to the community, but there also has to be a learning curve too at the table, where if someone else proposes another point of view and you think about it and say, oh, well, that makes more sense, then you have to be able as a person to say and agree, you know what, you're right, I was wrong, let's go with what you're saying. And that's how I think that government should function. We should work together and try to do what's best for everyone in the community, or the majority.
Right. You can't please everybody, right?
Right.
And you can't please everybody. And also there's the idea of recusing yourself from an issue that you think you may have an ethical issue about. Unfortunately, our Supreme Court, that's another topic for another show, it doesn't believe in that. But I can remember a couple of times where my daughter's second grade class one time was being considered, were they going to split it and make it a smaller class size or whatever. My son was playing football and they were going to hire a freshman football coach or not. And those times I recused myself and said, you know what? I can't vote, and I can't tell you the issue it was, but I remember specifically there was a vote that you were going to have to take. And you said, you know what, Bob? Well, not to Bob, but to the board member, Linda Bunyan, at that point in time, I really can't vote. I must abstain, whatever. And that helps make your role in the Board of Select person and also in the Board of Ed and anyone's involvement to do the right thing and let the town see that it's not for me, it's for everybody. Next topic for you that I want to raise is I grew up and lived in Shelton, Connecticut until I moved to Richfield in 1996. And in fact, I was on the Board of Ed, as I mentioned before, for 9 years in Shelton and on the Water Pollution Control Authority in Shelton before I came here. And in Shelton, we had a mayoral form of government. Richfield has a select person town meeting form of government. And on your agenda is the agenda topic of forms of government comparison task force, which is a review of whether or not our municipality should continue the way we're going now or change it. And that's going to be a big project to talk about and at least understand and analyze. I'd like you to talk to me a little bit about how this came about, first of all, that this is even being investigated, this possibility of maybe changing our charter ultimately, which would, of course, take a vote of the community. Why is this even being discussed at this point in time?
Well, the nugget of this is that it has been suggested for two past charter revisions, and in the last charter revision group that just ended end of last year, we voted on their suggestions in November. Just realized that they didn't have enough time to give a deep dive and fully investigate and all the comparative governments that could possibly be implemented in Connecticut. They're not saying that our current form of government, the select person and the town meeting form of government, is wrong or bad. It's working very well. The participation in government, I think, could be a little more robust. I'd like to see more people at meetings if I could ask. I think that town meeting form of governments function because people come out and let their select people know what they're interested in. That all being said, the town is growing, the budgets are growing, the intricacies of government are more. Are there other ways, better ways, different ways that we can continue to function on a high level like we currently are, but perhaps more efficiently? And in my mind, when I think about it, I think about the structure of the education, the Board of Education. They hire the superintendent, who is overseeing the complete operations of the school and the curriculum and, the management of all of the different departments, all of that, overseeing the school system. And then there's the Board of Education, which is the policymaking group who oversees the superintendent and kind of works together to give direction on what's being done. And should we look at something like that? Should the town of Ridgefield look at perhaps hiring an overseer, a town manager, that type of thing, but keep the 5 people, select people as policy decision makers who oversee the manager, and perhaps give the feedback that the town wants to that manager on how the town wants to be run. But the town manager would have that education and expertise to be able to interact with all the different town departments, the highway department, the Parks and Rec department, the police department, the fire department. I mean, there's any number of areas that right
and
now.
Maureen, there's nothing wrong with studying.
Right.
In fact, I always have a theory that if you stay the same and never change, you'll fall behind. Now, it may come out to be in your conclusion of this committee and the town, whatever, that it's just fine the way it is now, or there may be some tweaks that can go on to decide what's best. The important thing to me would be, as a citizen in this town, is that people shouldn't, in my opinion, go into this topic saying, oh, no, I have a stake in being what we have now, or I have a stake in something different. It should be a matter of analytical decision, because it's going to affect us if you change the charter or whatever for many, many years. So I think it's a good thing to study. I think it's a good thing to look at. When I came to town, I think Ridgefield had about around 20,000 people, more or less. And now I think it has 25 or 27,000. And coming from where we had a mayor in Shelton, I wondered, when will Ridgefield be in a position where maybe the town meeting doesn't work? Because part of the problem you get is the need, as I started this show about, participation by the community. And you'd never want to have a situation, for example, where a very vocal minority, and by minority I mean the number of people involved, making very important decisions that could be detrimental to the community, or vice versa. So I think it's a very, very good idea to study. If I were on the committee, I don't know what I would want to do. I know how I'd want to study it and how I'd want to analyze it. And I'm sure you'll, in fact, at that meeting, guys had a very good discussion about different pros and cons. And Rudy, our first selectman, had a pre-prepared thing, a list of what he thought the commission should do. And one person had some more comments, another one had comments, and you were putting it together. But it's like when I do an arbitration in my court process, you got to set up your arbitration the right way, so you ask the right questions so that you get answers to the right questions. So I applaud the Board of Select Persons for forming this approach to analyzing it. And we'll see whether in the year 2024 or 25 or 26, whenever you're done with the process, whether there's some tweaking to be done to make our community better. So I applaud you guys for this activity. Any further comment on this topic?
No, you summarized it very well, Bob. Thank you.
Can I write that down today? Maureen Kozlark said that Bobby O did it properly. Is there a topic you'd like me to raise before I go to my next topic? Because we only have about 5 minutes left. Is there a topic you'd like to get into?
I just want to remind people that we are going, and I don't know what your next topic is, but we are going into budget season. We're in the middle of budget season. And next Monday night is public hearing at East Ridge Middle School, 7:00. Board of Finance will be there. Mr. Marconi will be there. Dr. DeSilva will be there. They'll review the school budget, the town budget, and this will be townspeople's opportunity to get up and speak to the Board of Finance about pros, cons, concerns they have about the budget in Ridgefield. And then the Board of Finance will have a week and a half, 2 weeks of deliberations before they make the decision on what number they're going to pass to the town at large so that it can go to a vote. But I know it's harder for people to stay in contact and know what's actually going on, but this is a big decision, and budgeting, you can effectuate the budget in town by attending meetings and voicing your opinions. And I implore people to come out and do that. Dr.
Wallace, who's our superintendent of schools, when I was on the Board of Education, we actually hired him. He used to have a statement, which was a budget, in that case for the School Board of Education, a budget is, in dollars and cents, the plan for the community. That's what it is. And you are absolutely correct. That budget making is very, very critical. We see that right now in Washington, D.C. They're working on the budget. And we as a Board of Education, for example, in the budget that they put forward, you can't overspend your budget. Otherwise, unless they change the statute, since I was on the Board of Ed, I don't think they did, the Board of Ed members can be personally liable for overspending the budget. And we took great pride in either sending money back from the board. And people would say, wait a minute, why are you sending back money to the town? Because in that particular year, we didn't need $200,000, for example, but next year we might need $200,000. So the budget process is very critical, and people should know what they're voting on when they go to the ballot box or to the referendum and then the ballot, to make sure that they know what the issues are. And let me tell you, I can guarantee you that there'll be at least 2 items on that budget that Maureen may not like, or I may not like, or John Q. Citizen may not like, but you know what? It's consensus building. The other thing is that much of the budget is uncontrollable. And by that, I mean, on the Board of Ed, it used to be roughly like 85 to 87% of the budget we could not control because it was based upon contracts that existed. Is it still about that kind of percent, Maureen, to your knowledge?
Yeah, it is. And unfunded mandates, and just things that are out of the Board of Ed and the superintendent's control. So you're right, exactly.
We used to hate when I was on the Board of Ed, where the state would say, you got to do this, and we'll pay 50% in year 1, 25% in year 2, and year 3 you're on your own, but the mandate was still there. Where we have about 1 minute left, and we could go on, and we'll have you back on the show. Just give me a final statement you'd like to tell us about your vision of Richfield, or anything you want to say. You have the last word from me, maybe the last time in your life.
The last time, I love Richfield. I think it's a wonderful town. It's a wonderful community. I think that everyone in Richfield on the different boards are trying their best to craft the best town that we can possibly live in. And I think we should all be working together and, come to meetings, voice your opinions, write letters, call us. Feedback is always good. And I just want people to know that at a local level, this government, you have a voice and your voice will be heard. So
Maureen,
thank you for having me.
I want to thank you for your 23 years of service in our municipality. You've done a very good job, and I appreciate the hard work and efforts. And I think the topics that you're facing on the Board of Selectmen are very important ones. And I suggest people go to some of these meetings just to see how well our process works. And you can also watch them on TV too. This has been Bobo Potsner on The Bobby O Show. Let's go Yale and Duke tonight in basketball. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Bob.